Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Bestway Tours and Safaris, I would like to welcome you to today's webinar. Today's webinar is an interesting journey, part of our journeys to Eastern Europe and Russia. We are going to discover the Balkans. My name is Peter Langer. I am the Destination Marketing and Education Specialist of Bestway Tours and Safaris, and I will be your guide today to this fascinating region of Europe. Bestway Tours and Safaris has been operating small group cultural journeys since 1978. We operate tours to over 100 countries. We have organized specialized tours for a number of universities, museums, and other renowned institutions. We also have created a specialized division, which is called World Heritage Tours. Here we design itineraries that feature cultural and natural heritage sites as they're inscribed in the World Heritage List of UNESCO. These are considered very important sites as they are very valuable in terms of cultural or natural legacies we leave. UNESCO has approximately 900 sites, so there's plenty of these in the Balkan Mosaic. In particular, this itinerary or combination of itineraries, which I'm going to discuss with you today, features 16 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. First and foremost, let's discuss a little bit of the concept of Balkans. Balkans actually means forested mountains, and it comprises this entire part here of Eastern Europe. The countries we are going to talk about in the Balkans, although Greece and Bulgaria are also part of the Balkans, are not necessarily in the part of the itinerary we are going to discuss today. The Balkans have a long history which traces back to ancient Greece and later the Roman Empire. A lot of these countries have a number of Roman or even Greek ruins, which are of great interest to people who are into the classical studies. Where the Balkans really become interesting, as the area was occupied partly by the Austro-Hungarian Empire and partly by the Ottoman Empire, we have a great amount of history overlapping. Over the centuries, this has, as any buffer zone, has brought us quite a bit of conflict in between religions, cultures, and ethnicities. This really came to the fore at the end of the 19th century and became a serious problem at the beginning of the 20th and then at the end of the 20th century. As a matter of fact, a great part of the origins of the First World War can be traced back to the Balkans. The Balkans eventually were combined into one country, the country of Yugoslavia, which actually means Slavs of the South, and Albania. Once again, this was an artificial creation created by the Treaty of Lausanne in 1923. After the Second World War, there was a little bit of changing of the borders, but really, by 1995 and again in 2006, all these component parts of Yugoslavia fell apart. Hence, we now have new countries such as Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Montenegro, Macedonia, Serbia, and the latest addition, Kosovo. The Balkan region in itself has an incredible ethnic and religious diversity, which makes it so fascinating for a tour. You have such a great diversity of cultures, of customs, of languages. Traveling through this mountainous region is not as easy as it is in the rest of Europe, where you have easy rail connections and you have a very quick passage. The best time to visit the whole region is during the summer, from approximately May to October. The Adriatic coast, on the other hand, has a Mediterranean climate and can be visited from March until November. How to get here from North America? There's not really any direct flights to the Balkan region. So there are excellent connections via Amsterdam, Frankfurt, London, Munich, Paris, and other European combinations. From neighboring countries, some of it is accessible by rail, road, or air. But really, the Eurail pass, for example, would not work in most of the countries which we are going to talk about today. As a matter of fact, the Eurail only works in Croatia and Slovenia, and for Serbia and other parts, it doesn't work as well. That's when you need the Eastern European rail pass. We are going to now look into the different countries and some basic facts and the attractions and whatever things you need to see here. We start with the heart of the Balkans, which is Serbia, with a population of 7.5 million. Its capital city is the city of Belgrade. Now, it's very important to notice that all these countries have different language systems. In the case of Serbia, the official language is Serbian, which is a Slavic language, and they use the Cyrillic writing system. About 84% of Serbians are Orthodox Christians. When we visit Belgrade, which is the capital of Serbia since 1403, it's quite a charming European city with approximately 1.2 million inhabitants. There's, of course, a number of interesting monuments to be seen. Old Republic Square, where you have the National Theatre, the National Museum, the Serbian Academy of Arts and Sciences. But what is really pleasant about Belgrade is to walk down this wonderful pedestrianized street, which is the Gnez Mihajlova Street. This street takes you all the way from downtown to the core of the old city. And it's lined up with nice stores, cafes, restaurants, ice cream stores, and so on. When we get into the old part of Belgrade, there's a cute little, and this is, you will find a lot of these things which are quite typical of the Balkans. There's the question mark inn. The reason why it's called the question mark inn is nobody ever knew what the real name of the inn was. So there was just put a question mark. Nobody really knew, and that became actually an attraction within the city of Belgrade. We wandered through the old part of town. There is a number of things to be seen, such as Princess Ljubica's residence, which is now housing an exhibit of original furniture. And then, of course, the Patriarchy and the Orthodox Cathedral. This is actually the largest Orthodox cathedral on the Balkan Peninsula, with a beautiful iconostasis, all built in a combination of Baroque and neoclassical styles. Another great attraction in Belgrade, and I would suggest if your clients are joining our tour, to go there for a walk on the first day, even without a tour. It's a complete, the Kalemegdan fortress is a complete area which includes well-preserved artillery structures which date to the 18th century, an acropolis with original ramparts which date back even to the Middle Ages, and then people have been building on and on and on. There are some Turkish monuments, there are a number of interesting museums around here, and what is so lovely and which I find always very good for getting rid of jet lag is taking a walk through this marvelous park which is just adjacent to the fortress. Particularly in spring and summer, it's a wonderful way to, as I said, get rid of jet lag. In the evening, we can also enjoy wonderful Serbian cuisine and music. To give you an idea, for those of you who have been to Central Europe, in particular Vienna, Serbian cuisine is very, very similar. Rich foods prepared with great delicacy, and compared to the rest of Europe, very inexpensive. On the next day, we take an interesting tour. The beginning of the day starts with a visit of the Zarganska Osmika. This is a rail day for steam train buffs, photographers, and lovers of nature. We take a nostalgic ride on the old narrow gauge train, which is actually the Sarganska Osmika, through the breathtaking scenery of Serbia and Bosnia. This particular train goes through approximately 20 tunnels and crosses 10 bridges. It's a relatively short ride of approximately an hour and a half, and it's charmingly arranged for tourists. After that, we visit Visegrad. What is interesting to note, whenever you see at the bottom right corner of the screen this little symbol, that is an actual World Heritage Site. What is the great attraction of Visegrad? And Visegrad is located in the part of Bosnia-Herzegovina which is called the Republika Srpska, which is the Serbian part of Bosnia and Herzegovina. The most interesting part here is the bridge, which was built in 1571 by the architect Sinan. He is a very important architect of the Ottoman Empire and built quite a lot of civil engineering structures throughout the entire Balkan Peninsula and, of course, in Turkey. The Ottoman structure actually was also the inspiration for a novel by Ivo Andrić, The Bridge over the Drina, which actually won him in 1961 the Nobel Prize for Literature. We return then into Serbia and go to Mount Zlatibor National Park. Mount Zlatibor is actually very well known for its mountainous scenery with golden pines. Zlatibor actually means golden pine. Zlati is gold and Bor is tree. So it is the mountain of the golden trees. This is also one of the last refuges for European bears. The bears in general in Europe disappeared, but here we still can find them in the wild. We end this day in Sirogojno. This is an ethno village. It's one of these typical outdoor exhibit museums where there has been a collection of all these traditional buildings from the Zlatibor region from the 19th century, including a bakery, a dairy, and an inn, which have all been collected. Our hotel is also close by to this village, so it's nice to take an evening walk and possibly shop for some souvenirs. This whole area is actually quite famous for its textile crafts. The next day we visit the Studenica Monastery. The Studenica Monastery was established actually in the 12th century by Stefan Nemanja, which was the founder of the medieval Serb state shortly after his abdication. When he resigned his position, he actually went into a retreat into this monastery. It is actually the richest of the Orthodox monasteries, and there are two principal monuments, the Church of the Virgin and the Church of the King. Both are built in white marble and enshrine a priceless collection of 13th and 14th century Byzantine paintings. Talking about Byzantine paintings, we continue on to Stari Ras, which was the first capital of Serbia. And here, nearby, about 10 kilometers from it, is the Sopoćani Monastery. This is also an UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's actually a group of medieval monuments consisting of a number of fortresses, churches, monasteries. And this particular monastery is very, very famous for its medieval mural paintings. In many ways, many of these paintings predated the Renaissance and have a sense of perspective and depth, which is unseen actually before the Italian Renaissance anywhere else in Europe. Hence, the monastery is also an UNESCO World Heritage Site. We end our day in the small town of Novi Pazar. This is a nice little town, not too big, with 60,000 inhabitants, perfect to take a little walking tour and enjoy the mix of cultures here, as it's getting more and more mixed. On the next day, we head into Kosovo. Just to give you some brief facts about Kosovo, the country has a population of about 1.8 million inhabitants. Its capital city is Pristina. Now here again the languages vary. We have Albanian and Serbian, as well as recognized regional languages such as Turkish, Gorani, Romani, Bosnian. Contrary to Serbia, in Kosovo they use the Latin alphabet. So once again we can feel free to read. 90% of the Kosovars believe in Islam. However, the interesting thing is we are in this very Islamic country, yet some of the most important monasteries and medieval monuments in Kosovo belong to the Serbian religion. We will visit a number of important monasteries such as the Čekani Monastery. These are all built in the Middle Ages and are all Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox religious monuments. The monastery of Peš, and then we hand over to the city of Pristina. Pristina in itself is not really all that interesting. The most interesting feature is Bill Clinton Boulevard, as Bill Clinton brought in the Dayton Accords and saved the people of Kosovo from extermination in the 1990s. He is a very revered personage in the area. In one of the suburbs, however, of Pristina, we have other important monuments. One other thing which is wonderful about the Balkans is to enjoy the food. You enjoy here already we are starting to get the influence of wonderful Turkish food. So a lot of kebabs, stuffed peppers, delightful chicken. And what is nice again, it is extremely affordable and deliciously prepared. And one of the suburbs of the city of Pristina is the Gračanica Monastery. Again, there are about 5 monasteries which belong to the medieval monuments of Kosovo World Heritage Site. In this particular tour, we will be visiting 3 of them. They are all in a perfect state of conservation and tend to date back to anywhere from the 12th to the 15th century. So the iconostasis, which you get to see here, is still very well preserved. After that day, our brief visit into Kosovo, we continue on to Macedonia. Macedonia, or actually as it's officially called, the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, that's because they're having a bureaucratic argument with the Greeks for close to 20 years. It has to be officially called FYRO, former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia. Macedonia has a population of approximately 2.1 million people. Its capital city is the city of Skopje. As a matter of fact, Skopje is only an hour away from Pristina. The languages are, Macedonian is the official language. Here again, we use the Cyrillic writing system. As a matter of fact, the Cyrillic writing system was invented in Macedonia. Approximately 65% of the population is Orthodox Christian, and the remaining third believes in Islam. We start our visit of an ancient city, which is the city of Skopje. In ancient Greek times, it was actually known as Skupi. Probably the most important monument which is to be found in the old part of town is the, again, a Ottoman bridge, which was built in the 15th century. This is a pedestrian bridge only, and it connects the old with the new part of the city of Skopje. We will obviously take a walking tour through the old part before heading to visiting a number of churches, such as the important Church of St. Spas, which is very famous for its marvelous iconostas in the 17th century. Then we head over to Ohrid. Ohrid is quite an amazing place. The entire town is by the lake, which is called Ohrid, and the whole town is also an UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's really, in many ways, a town which has so many layers of history, as you will eventually see. There's a very interesting in Ohrid is such a religious and such an important center in the Orthodox religion, and actually in general terms for the Slavic written languages. The Slavic written languages all the way to Russia and Ukraine, because it is in Ohrid that the Cyrillic alphabet was created by the brothers Cyril, hence the name Cyrillic or Cyrillic, and Methody. They invented it here. Ohrid has a long history. Actually, it was called Lignidos, or City of Lights in ancient Greek times. So when we wandered through the town, and we spent an entire 2 nights here to really give people a time to explore it. The best way to do that is on foot. We start with the amphitheater, which is an ancient Greek amphitheater, and then there's a number of Paleo-Christian excavations. Ohrid is very famous also for a number of churches. It is said that Ohrid has 365 churches. So you can go to a different church to offer your prayers on any day of the week. You can pick throughout the whole year. You can pick a separate church. Also, what we tend to visit is the castle, which overlooks the whole city and the lake. It's strategically located. It was built. The Tsar's Smyli fortress dates back to about the 10th century, and actually at the bottom of the fortress is where you get to see so many of these wonderful churches. There is St. Clement from the 13th century, St. Sophia from the 11th, and so on and so forth. What you will also find is charming when you wander through all these little alleyways in Ohrid is the traditional Turkish or Ottoman architecture. In many ways, this reminds me of Istanbul. When you go to the older parts, well, Istanbul is now experiencing quite a bit of modernization and changes. But when you go to the more traditional areas, you will find that the architecture is extremely similar. After our visit of Ohrid and Ohrid Lake, you can see that Ohrid Lake is just on the border with Albania. We head into Albania. Albania has a population of 3 million inhabitants. Its capital is the city of Tirana. Albanian is the official language, and here again we are using the Latin alphabet. Approximately 70% of Albanians believe in Islam, 20% in Orthodox Christianity, and 10% adhere to the Roman Catholic faith. The first place we go to in Albania is a wonderful little town, which is also called the town of 1,000 windows, or the city of 1,000 windows, and that's Berat. Berat, the entire town, has also been designated by UNESCO World Heritage Site. Here we will visit a whole collection of Orthodox monasteries, but also there's a number of mosques. In this particular town, people tend to live in harmony side by side. You will see some interesting wooden iconostasis such as this one in Berat. What's also nice is, because it's an UNESCO World Heritage Site, no really modern construction can be built here. So the urban landscape, the urban fabric of Berat has been perfectly preserved. The wandering through the cobblestone streets is absolutely delightful. Many times what I suggest to clients, and I've done it myself, is to wander through these places, not only accumulating dates and history, but really cherishing those small experiences. Walking across the various bridges from Ohrid, you really get to see how the whole city has been built up on Mount Timori. As a matter of fact, on the top of the mountain there is a 16th century fortress. From Berat we travel to Durrës. or formerly Durazzo. This part of Albania actually was part of Italy in the 1920s, and actually it was all part of the Roman Empire at some point or the other. Durrës or Durazzo was founded by the Illyrian king Epidamnos, who called it actually in his own name and named it after the port. This is an important port as well as all the ferries which go to Italy depart from Durrës. Here we will see quite a number of interesting Roman ruins, such as this Roman amphitheater. There's also an archaeological museum and a Roman bath. Now, one thing I can highly suggest is to go to the Balkans in general, especially Albania, as quickly as possible. Modernity is arriving very, very fast, and these places are changing as all becoming very modern. You can see the advertisement. You might have heard of this exotic firm, which is featured here on this site of construction. Only 20 years ago, all of Albania had only 28 kilometers of highways. With the assistance of the European community and the International Monetary Fund, a number of highways has been built, and Albania is modernizing actually quite fast. Interesting as well is to go to the capital city, which is included in our tour, which is the city of Tirana. Tirana was actually founded in 1614, but it really became the capital of Albania in 1920s. Here we get to see, of course, the main square, but it's interesting to note, if you're into this communist, socialist, Stalinist architecture, you see the happy Albanian workers in the revolution. Albania was probably the most Stalinist of all the countries in the socialist bloc, and you will find still quite a number of remnants of this very drab architecture. There was a mayor in Tirana who decided to really issue paint, and to paint of different colors just to give the city a little bit of more life. On Skanderbeg Square is also a small mosque, which dates back to approximately the 15th century. In general terms, the city is quite modern, not too big, and again, explore the little places, the hidden things. Like, you will not see this in probably 10 years' time, when as everything gets regulated. And this honey vendor had different types of honey, obviously offer. The hospitality is so wonderful. You constantly get given food to you. It's part of the Muslim hospitality, part of the Muslim tradition, to always start to share food. It's really a wonderful, sometimes those are more the treasured memories than all these historic sites accumulated. We continue on to Montenegro, and once again, Montenegro is actually the least populated of these countries, with a population of 6,000. The capital city is the city of Podgorica, which is not of great importance. Of course, it's great importance to the bureaucrats, but not from any historical point of view or from a touristic sightseeing point of view. The languages which are spoken are Montenegrine, which is the official language, but once again, Serbian, Bosnian, Albanian, and Croatian are recognized officially in usage. Here we use the Cyrillic writing system, and you see Albania was 3/4 Muslim. In the case of Montenegro, 74.2% are Orthodox Christian, 17% believe in Islam, and 3.5% are Roman Catholic. You can see already the tremendous diversity. Well, the first town we visit in Montenegro is the city of Budva. Budva is located actually in the on the Adriatic Sea. It's the old part of town was fortified, with a typical landscape of the narrow streets, stone buildings, usually placed around the main cathedral. The rest of it is relatively modern, and it's also quite lovely, and it's actually in many ways a beach resort. From Budva, we travel onwards, and we get to the most amazing place, which is the natural harbor of Kotor. Not only the historical town, but the entire area around it, with its gorgeous nature, has been declared an UNESCO World Heritage Site. Kotor, as a matter of fact, was for a long time a Venetian colony. And what is so nice about Kotor, once again, is to walk through the town. These are towns which were still built well before cars were invented, so they are actually functioning on a human scale. Now, if you pay attention to the architecture and you see this, you can definitely see the Venetian influence in the town. And in many ways, very much like Venice, when the best thing to do in Venice or places like that is to actually get lost. Because when you take a walk through the city, you go back to medieval times, through these narrow alleyways, and then all of a sudden you come across these small churches. There's a number of interesting churches actually in Kotor, such as the Cathedral of St. Tryphon, St. Luca Church, and St. Michael Church. These are actually very small, quite quaint and intimate churches with a lot of history. Of course, on the tour we will be guiding you through these, but once again, advise your clients to just also explore a little bit on their own. That's when you get to see small little details, such as, for example, here, the symbol of St. Mark, which is the Venetian lion, and the symbol of the city of Venice. Again, Kotor is quite a charming town. Before we head out to travel into Bosnia and Herzegovina, you will see there's a number of little churches sitting in the middle of the natural bay. It is really one of the most beautiful parts of the Adriatic coast. We then head into the mountains, and this is a fascinating area, and that's Bosnia and Herzegovina. Just to give you an idea, it has 3.8 million inhabitants, but because of all the conflicts which occurred in the 1990s, the official capital of Bosnia and Herzegovina is the city of Sarajevo. But Bosnia itself is divided into two administrative territories. One is the Serb Republic, with the de facto capital Banja Luka, and on the other hand we have the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, where the capital is Sarajevo. The language spoken in Bosnia and Herzegovina are Bosnian, Croatian, Serbian minority languages, but here again we use the Latin writing system. The population is roughly divided half and half in between Muslims and Christians, and that reflects itself in the sites we get to see. The city of Sarajevo is actually fascinating because it has so much history. In the case of Sarajevo, for example, you get to see the Latin bridge over the Miljaska River. Here is where the assassination of the Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria took place by Gavrilo Princip in 1914. It is this event which ended up being the big trigger for the First World War and the conflict that eventually generated, costing the lives of millions upon millions of people. Talking about conflict, in the 1990s, as a matter of fact, from the 5th of April 1992 until the 29th of February 1996, the city of Sarajevo was besieged. That actually is the longest siege of any capital city in the history of modern warfare. As a matter of fact, this was even longer than the siege of Leningrad, which is so famous. Before the siege and before all the conflict occurred, the city of Sarajevo had approximately 450,000 inhabitants. After the siege, only 300,000 people were left, of which actually 10,000 died. It is not necessarily that those 150,000 people died. A lot of people emigrated and left for greener and better and more peaceful pastures. After the wars of the 1990s, a lot of people have returned. The place in itself is peaceful, wonderful to explore, because one thing I particularly like about the city of Sarajevo is its cultural diversity, and the people are so friendly. What is fascinating in the particular case of here is to wander through the Muslim or the Chashi neighborhood. In reality, you feel taken back to Turkey of, say, the 19th, early 20th century. People sit literally on the street enjoying a cup of tea or smoking a water pipe, eating cookies. There's a number of cafes. It really is an interesting experience from a human point of view. Aside from seeing all the mosques and synagogues and churches, this is really many times a highlight of a trip. Once we leave Sarajevo, we head off. One thing is in Sarajevo for clients who wish to take a shorter tour, a 14-day tour, they will have the opportunity to leave the tour in Sarajevo and continue on onwards or go home, while the rest of the tour, which is much longer, continue on to Medjugorje. Medjugorje is actually is a small town. In Medjugorje in 1981, a number of children did see or had appearances of the Virgin Mary. It became, after these sightings, a major Catholic pilgrimage site, and they built a huge pilgrimage church. You can see there's a number of facilities here. As a matter of fact, there are people who come all the way from Mexico, Peru, the Philippines, Spain, from all over the Catholic world. People come here, very much like Lourdes in France or Fatima in Portugal. It's become a very important pilgrimage site in Europe. From here, it's only 15 minutes away, we get to the amazing town of Mostar. Mostar, its old town, and the bridge are also an UNESCO World Heritage Site. The bridge in Mostar was commissioned actually by Suleiman the Magnificent in the mid-16th century, and it took 9 years to build. As a matter of fact, the architect which was commissioned with this, Minar Yurin, was charged under pain of death to construct the perfect bridge. When they finally opened the bridge, the day the scaffolding was removed, this architect decided to sleep under the bridge that night, just in case it failed and would fall down. It would at least kill him and would avoid him being boiled alive or flayed alive. Sadly, the bridge was destroyed by the wars in the 1990s. A shell impacted it. The bridge had absolutely no strategic importance. Well, in between 2001 and 2004, UNESCO, the Aga Khan Trust for Culture, and the World Monuments Fund, along with several European governments, decided to rebuild the bridge. And they were very fortunate because the different pieces of the bridge which fell into the Narrated River were still left intact. That and original material, so most of the original materials were pieced together. In 2004, the bridge opened again. It's quite a sight to be seen, and of course, with many of these marble pieces, it's a little bit slippery. Hence, they built these little barriers into the steps. wonderful monument. In general terms, Mostar is a lovely town to visit. From here, we head into Croatia, which has a population of 4.5 million inhabitants. The capital of Croatia is the city of Zagreb. Official language is Croatian. Here we use the Latin alphabet, and very much like the rest of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, 87.7% of the population is Roman Catholic. We visit in the city of Zagreb a number of interesting places, such as these wonderful exhibit gardens, the Dolak market, where you have fresh produce. That's one of the nice things about most of these countries, is that you can explore the market and the farmers bring all sorts of fresh produce, very much like they have done for hundreds of years. There's also a wonderful Gothic cathedral in the city of Zagreb, and the theater. What is interesting about the architecture of Zagreb is that the style is very much the secession style of the height of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. So in many ways you will find that the architecture reminds us very much of Vienna. The great highlight of any tour in Croatia, of course, is the UNESCO World Heritage Site of Dubrovnik. Dubrovnik, once again, is one of these walking areas. The historic center, which is also an UNESCO World Heritage Site, is located within a walled fortress. And within that walled fortress, there is absolutely no traffic allowed. So what we usually do is we leave people in front of the pile gate, and from there they can walk through the town. As our tour has 2 nights, people will really get to enjoy the port of Dubrovnik in its full glory. It's very important to note, because Dubrovnik is very popular on many Mediterranean cruises which originate in Venice. There is a time of the day, usually between 10 o'clock in the morning and about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, where the town is jam-packed full with cruise ship passengers which quickly come, see the town, and very much like Venice, these medieval towns are not really meant to hold as many guests as they do. And the nice thing about our tour is you eventually get, once the masses, the cruise ship passengers leave, you get to have enjoy the town on its own. It's very funny, actually. This is the pile gate. This is the pile. A lot of people, tourists, only tourists, will drink the water from it. They don't realize that the tank is open, and on the top well there's plenty of pigeons which do their business into the water. So it's funny to see people refreshing their water bottles, etc., etc. The architecture of Dubrovnik is actually quite lovely. You have a complete mix of Venetian styles of architecture, quite a lot of Baroque churches, and in general terms, once again here, this is at the bottom, you can see it's beautiful marble, very, very slippery, so be very careful. It's almost dangerous to walk in there. And as I mentioned, what is so lovely is when the cruise ship passengers are gone, you really have the town on your own. It's a perfect opportunity to, for example, dine al fresco and soak in the atmosphere. Quite a lovely place. And before we head to the next World Heritage Site, which is the city of Split. Split in itself is actually a fairly boisterous port, a vibrant city of shouting stall owners, in-transit travelers, sailors, and it has a bit of a noisy feel to it. At the heart of all this, there is the historical complex of Split with the Palace of Diocletian. The Roman Emperor Diocletian, who incidentally was born in Split, decided to build a palace for himself in the 4th century of our era. This ended up being such a huge palace, actually it occupies an area of approximately 29,000 square meters. So can you imagine your house being 290,000 square feet? Roughly that's what it is. There's ruins, there have been churches built inside the palace, there are underground passages. Quite a lot of this original Roman architecture has been very well preserved. And what is once again lovely, once you get out of the older part of town, you can sit on the sidewalks, sidewalk cafes, enjoy a coffee or a drink, and soak in the atmosphere. From here, we go over to another World Heritage. This is not very far from Split, the city of Trogir. Trogir it's a very small town, a very small, intimate experience. Trogir is actually a town where life goes around the main square. There's the cathedral, the communal palace, and the loggia. As a matter of fact, in terms of Romanesque architecture, this is probably one of the finest monuments of Romanesque architecture, dating to the 13th and 15th century. It's part of this, and part because of the urban landscape that UNESCO also declared it a World Heritage Site. Our next stop, once again, is Šibenik. It's a unique place on the Dalmatian coast because it's surrounded by hundreds of little islands and inlets which are located in the Adriatic Sea. What we will visit here also is the wonderful Renaissance Cathedral of Šibenik. It's a Roman Catholic cathedral, the Cathedral of St. James, and it's probably one of the best examples of pure Renaissantistic architecture. Continuing our voyage through history, we head to Zadar. Zadar is actually the ancient capital of Dalmatia. It's so ancient that it actually still has a Roman forum, which dates back to the 2nd century. As a matter of fact, Zadar was part of Italy until 1947, and you will still feel quite a bit as if you were in Italy when you explore this town. Near Zadar, we go to another amazing World Heritage Site, and that is the Plitvice. Those who speak Serbo-Croatian, please forgive my absolutely abominable pronunciation. The Plitvice Lakes National Park is actually a karstic phenomenon. It is one of the natural World Heritage Sites we visit on this tour. Here, water flowing from limestone and chalk have created, over thousands of years, travertine barriers. So those create natural dams, which in turn have created a series of beautiful lakes. The colors in many ways are reminiscent of Lake Louise in the Canadian Rockies. The way people explore these is by walking on these wonderful wooden pathways, so it's a very safe and nice area to visit. The last country which we do offer as an extension is Slovenia. It's although Slovenia is not really part of the Balkans, it was part of the former Yugoslavia. Hence, we've thought people usually would like to include it. The population is of approximately 2 million inhabitants. Its capital is the city of Ljubljana. The language here is Slovene. Also recognized languages are Hungarian and Italian. And as a matter of fact, 30 languages are spoken in this tiny country. It's south of Austria, and in many, many ways it looks just like Austria. Over half of the population is basically Roman Catholic. The gem of Slovenia, of course, is Bela Ljubljana. Ljubljana was, as a matter of fact, destroyed by an earthquake in 1511. And in the reconstruction effort, they built this beautiful city, hence Bela Ljubljana. You will find that in many, many ways, it's like a Vienna in miniature. Another experience here, you will feel very much like you are in Austria or southern Germany, by the architecture, except it's all very small, easy walking distance. You can, of course, go and explore the market. Yet another wonderful highlight we have for you is to go to Lake Bled. Bled is actually an alpine lake. It features the only island in Slovenia. And on this tiny little island, originally they thought it was inhabited by fairies, there's a small Baroque church dedicated to Our Lady of the Lake. Other things we explore in Slovenia is Lipic. Lipic is actually quite famous because it is here that the Austrian emperors decided, as a matter of fact it was the Austrian Archduke Charles, decided to breed horses here. All those horses which you have seen in the Spanish riding school in Vienna were originally bred in Lipic. Of course, after the end of the First World War, that was moved over to Hungary, later to Germany, and back into Austria. But really, the Lipizzaner, or these white, beautiful horses, originated in Lipic. As a matter of fact, after the end of the Second World War, only 11 horses of the original horses were left. They have continued breeding the horses, and they also perform shows very much like the ones of the horse riding school of the Spanish horse riding school in Vienna. Another fascinating part of the karstic landscape, as we just saw in the wonderful lakes in Plitvice, there is the Postojna cave. This is an amazing cave system. These are caves which are approximately 2 million years old. There's a series of caverns, halls, and passages that are 27 kilometers long. So in many ways, this tour offers you a variety in terms of culture, history, ethnicity. We have, as a matter of fact, designed it in a way that you can spend 20 days in Croatia, Montenegro, Albania, Kosovo, Macedonia, Serbia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, and the Republika Srpska. The highlights on this particular tour is that we visit 14 World Heritage Sites, and if you take in the Slovenia extension, which goes to Zagreb, the Lipic Stud Farm, the Postojna Cave, that ups the number of World Heritage Sites to 15. We also have shorter versions, the same tour, but basically ending in Sarajevo. Or you can take the other part, which is 11 days in Bosnia, Croatia, and Slovenia. These tours also are ideal in combination with tours to Bulgaria, Romania, and Moldova, which we also offer. It's very important to note that the Balkan region, particularly these areas, are relatively difficult to organize independently, simply because of the difficulties in terms of language and transportation between the countries. All of our tours actually include superior or deluxe class hotels with private facilities, meals as they're indicated on the itineraries, obviously all the tours, sightseeing, admissions, guides which are English speaking. That becomes very important. These are countries where English is still not quite vastly spoken as in the rest of Europe. Of course, one important thing we also do is we always provide our clients with personalized arrival and departure transfers to and from the airport. What is very important to consider with Bestway Tours, on this particular tour we have 8, our minimum group tour size is 2 passengers. Maximum usually is 12 passengers. On this one we are only taking 8 people. What we find is that with Bestway Tours and Safaris, we want people to experience the destination, and we find that there's an enormous amount of time which is spent coming and going to a restaurant or a photo shop or a souvenir shopping or what have you, that always delays a tour, especially when those tours are 20 to 30 passengers. Another very important thing for you to consider as an agent is that we have many years of experience in terms of customizing the tour programs to suit your own needs, whether that's for a single person or a group. So if you have any group ideas, we will be more than happy to assist you in putting this together. The whole idea is that when you plan a trip with us, you will save time, money, and above all, hassle. At Bestway Tours, we are truly committed to providing you with superior quality travel at real value per dollar prices. Of course, if you need more information, the details, I think you have already received our flyers and of course the questionnaire, but you can find all this additional information on our website at bestway.com or call us in Vancouver at 604-264-7378 or anywhere in Canada. Feel free to give us a call at 800-663-0844 or feel free to send us an email at bestway@bestway.com. I will now open the phone lines. Just one moment, please. And just a reminder for all of you, we are having a webinar on our Wild Kingdom Safari Tour next week. That particular webinar will include Kenya and Tanzania in a very special safari. We will also be discussing about different options. Please allow with me just 1 second. For those of you which are not on the 800 line, you can feel free to ask any questions by typing it in on the bottom corner of the panel. Are there any questions? One more thing I'd like to say in terms of visa, because there is a bit of confusion. None of these countries, in the past there was difficulties with Macedonia, particularly with Canada. That has now been eliminated. You do not need a visa for any of these countries. You just show up there with your passport and it gets stamped. That's very, in general terms, it's an easy region. But as I said earlier, it's not as easy as, let's say, going to do France, Belgium, Holland, what have you, where you just hop on the train, you don't have to worry about anything. This is a little bit more complex than your usual European tour. Any other questions, ladies, gentlemen? Well, I hope you've enjoyed it. I know it's a tremendous amount of information. I hope you enjoyed the photographs, which happened to be mine, so you did get actually a real traveler's experience here, rather than just happy tourism board photos.